Last week, it was the shutout. This week, it was the shitfest. How did Argentina go on and win this game? Which player scored a perfect 10 from the Wallabies? And how did the forward pack bounce back from South Africa? All of this in today's episode, Rugby fam. So, let's dive into the game review. Like I said at the top, there's a bit of a shitfest in Sydney. So, I don't know how many losses we've chalked up there over the years. It's been way too many, particularly the first test match at home of the round. It's such a tough, frustrating experience to come back to year after year, the Sydney shitfest. Yeah. How did Argentina win this match? Basically, the Wallabies played them in. Started off the match, again, a Wallaby score pretty early on, some slick passing, some movement through the backs. But then after that, it was just we were just giving them the ball. And then even during that early stages, that first 20 to 30 minutes, I had, as I was going through my notes for recording the rugby ratings, the player ratings, it's basically like making marks of all the good things that the Aussies have done, looked over to the Argentinian side of the ledger, and there was not much in it. Basically, I was just seeing not much in attack. They were sort of bumbling and fumbling, a couple of hit-ups, not really making much gain line advantage. For about 20 to 30 minutes, they weren't really making an impact on the game. But then, because the Wallabies just kept giving them ball, kept giving them some territory through mistakes, penalties started to creep up. I thought Yako wasn't quite as sharp as Ben O'Keefe in the last match, but still the Wallabies gave him the opportunity to lay down the penalty count. And then the Argentinians had all of a sudden had all this ball, all this territory, and they rolled on to the win. They kept coming at the line. If it was not for Marky Mark's intercept try at the end, it would be a very different result. And I think without his overall effort, it wouldn't have been close at all. The Argentinians would have been played into the match, got their couple of tries, and then just kept kicking on with us not much having much continuity, giving away way too many penalties. The Wallabies just kept dropping the ball, and it was just a shitfest. And that's how the Argentinians won. Better game to watch than last week, albeit, but still a very disappointing result. So let's start off with our ratings for the respective pack and the backline. Forwards ratings, I think a bounce back from South Africa, some personnel changes, some injury force, some just tactical choices, some testing things out. I thought overall there was a bounce back. Set piece was strong. We owned the set piece, I think, comfortably for most of the match, if not all of the match. But then the back three of the Argentinians, the back row, totally dominated us in the breakdown and across the pitch. So overall, I'm giving the forward pack a 4, up 1 point from last week, but we just didn't have the impact and gain line advantage. Yes, the set piece had more or less ironed out all of those issues, albeit against a team arguably half as good as the South Africans at home. So I can't give anything more than a 4. Set piece was strong, but then ghost-like performances across the rest of the field. Backline, again, difficult to stand up to a breakdown and a forward pack that was hungry for the ball. Set piece, not quite as skilled, not quite as dominant, but still difficult for the backs to get a foot in, and ultimately this led to penalties being conceded, knock-ons, errors, poor kicks, poor drop balls, all that fun stuff. Ultimately, though, from the 5 or 6 minute after Len Ekitau's try, it was always going to be a tough match to come back from and really dominate and really get across the gain line when you're missing such a key defensive component to the match. Particularly with, again, Eddie, what are you doing? The 6-2 bench split. Totally ripped us apart, having two playmakers in, Quaid at 10 and Carter Gordon at 12, who, albeit both of them, Carter Gordon arguably played a better game, and I thought was great to see in a roundabout sense, seeing him have so much more game time on the game. But ultimately, backs marking down as a 6 out of 10. I thought it was really solid. There was glimpses there. Winger, we both had hungry, competent wingers who went looking for the ball, went looking for work. And like I said, I think without Marky Mark doing an intercept try and super, super hungry, we wouldn't have been in it anywhere near the way we were to be leading at the 79th minute. Really solid performance from the backs against a forward pack that was hungry for the ball and dominant across the pitch outside of the set piece. Again, 5 to a 6, solid effort. Let's get down to the top 5, the razzle dazzlers from the Wallabies' performance on the weekend against Argentina. Top 1 and our first top 10, perfect 10 rating goes to Mark Nowakatawase. Hopefully get better at pronouncing that. Marky Mark was just a dominant force the entire match. Basically, not only did he execute everything he was meant to the whole game, I don't think there was any errors or anything that I could really put down to as being his errors in the match. Just a perfect 10. Defensively strong, kept us in the hunt basically with a hungry performance, looking for work, Corabetti himself in terms of being that hungry defensive force, looking for work in attack, looking for work in defense. Perfect 10 for a reason, and exemplified by his intercept try that arguably turned the match on its head and gave us a chance at winning the match, which we really didn't deserve after a pretty poor performance. Number 2 coming in, Quade Cooper, giving away the penalty that arguably let Argentina win that game, albeit with side. I thought he had a solid performance. Controlled the game well, slick passing, did it the best he could defensively with Carter Gordon in the front line, and I think overall a 7. So a solid performance from Quade Cooper, albeit with giving the Argentinians the win at the end there. Number 3, Tom Wright. Again, one really poor moments, dropping the grubber kick and fumbling that at the back. Shouldn't have been fumbled, shouldn't have given the Argentinians a sniff, but I don't know how he's prevented that try. The way the Argentinian play fell in that 43rd minute, 9.99999 times out of 10, that try gets scored. So to do that, and I think it was a little nudge from Samu to help prevent the try, but defensively strong, couple of errors, couple of knock-ons that are par for the course with Tom Wright. Solid performance, a 7. I'm not sure if he has done enough to now down the fullback jersey, though. You do that against the All Blacks, they put 14 on you like that. So I'm not super confident. I thought it was ultimately a really strong game, albeit with a couple of mistakes that arguably would have got him a higher score if he ironed those out. Carter Gordon coming in at number 4 with a 6. Really put in a really tough position, coming in at 12, having to play and defend at 12 for, I think it was about 40, 50 minutes of the game. And for the Wallabies to lose their key defensive player in Len Ikitau, who manages so much of the defensive structures and the out-and-out tackles of the team, is just a really tough one to go through. But Carter Gordon really stood up, showed his glimpses of brilliance in defense, glimpses of brilliance in attack. Couple of errors here and there in terms of juggling the kickoff, the tricky kickoff at the end that let Argentina into the game. But again, I think I've gone through about 3 or 4 players that contributed to us losing in the end, and it was that moment. Still underlines a really strong performance from Carter. And top 5, again, sneaking into the top 5 in that 5th position, Dave Porecki. He missed a crucial tackle at the end, but again, that was just, he shouldn't have been on the field. He had fatigued and put in an awesome shift. Again, so many technical skills that he executed perfectly. Line-out was crisp. Scrum was strong and dominant for the most part. And around the field, he was hungry, looking for work, lots of tackles. That one missed tackle, really indicative of Jordan Ulisse being on the bench and Eddie not really feeling confident letting him in to disrupt those line-outs, disrupt the strong foundation that Dave Porecki put in. 1 point up on this week. He closes it out with a 6. Let's dive into the Flim Flammers. So definitely an overall better performance from the Wallabies this week. So you'll see even the Flim Flammers, there's no 1s, there's no 2s. We clock in number 1 with a 3, Richie Arnold. This is mainly down to the yellow card he conceded, albeit on the line, defending strongly and defending hard, that contributed to the Wallabies holding the Argentinians out, almost impossibly holding them out at the end of the first half. Ultimately, though, arguments can be made about him anchoring our line-outs, doing lots of the dark arts, the things that aren't seen. But with that yellow card, having to knock down a couple of points, he rounds us out at the 3. I think he potentially has iced his starting position. Him and Will Skelton put together a really strong performance together, and gave a bit of steel, a bit of formidability to that tight 5, which arguably was why our set piece was able to dominate and hold the advantage for the entire game. Jed Holloway comes in with a number 4 at the second flim flammer. Jetty boy, again, just a passenger performance in the 6 jersey. It's so there. It's so up for grabs. It's the redemption story. It's the Hollywood story, coming back from literally Hollywood, playing in the MLR over in America. But just not icing his opportunity and really not having a good enough impact on the game. Barely saw him in involvement. He wasn't getting into rucks. He wasn't doing anything. For someone of his size and stature, we should have really been seeing more dents in the game line, and they just weren't there. And I think we still are searching for our number 6. And then wrapping out the Flim Flammers, Alan Alatoa. Really strong performance in the scrum, taking it up a notch with James Slipper and Dave Parecki there. But just a couple of silly penalties and a very un-Allen performance that sneaks into his game, shaving points off all the strong work he did at the set piece and around the park. I think he was probably the exception to the rule in getting into the nitty-gritty, trying to control the breakdown against a really momentum-heavy Argentinian forward pack. Alan, strong performance, a couple of silly penalties knocking us down to a 4. All right, wrapping out the game ranking for this one. Certainly an improved performance, so nowhere near the bottom 3. It was an ultimately entertaining match, lots of points scored, back and forth. As a Wallabies fan, to see them give so much ball, give so many penalties, it was certainly painful, but in an entertaining way, if that makes sense. So I think this one has to go up in that 50%. I think bang on midway. No way is it getting into a positive sense. It's barely a pass. But yeah, entertaining match to watch. Arguably made entertaining by the Argentinians, but ultimately game watchability right on the midway. And that's my wrap up of the Wallabies player ratings from round 2 of the Rugby Championship 2023. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Did you have any disagreements? Did I go out and above in weird and wonderful ways? Let me know in the comments what you rated of the game as well. Who was your top pick? Thanks, Rugby fan.